ludicrous at the least. But they made accusations that teachers flew in the air, that students were sodomized, and had nothing to say about it when asked by their parents whether or not this happened. Which just, as a parent myself, seems completely outlandish to me. I cannot imagine a child attending a preschool and not having something to say to their parent when they experience that kind of abuse.
Right. But what if your child had said that they flew through the air? Like, preface it's, oh, this happened to me, but also this teacher flew in the air. Would you, like, want to do more investigation or?
Absolutely. Like, if my child, if my kid told me, hey, my teacher abused me in this way and then flew through the air, or if my kid said, hey, my teacher gets on a broomstick and flies, but also my teacher abuses me in this way, I absolutely would have looked into it further.
Right.
And so I think that really, the fact that folks were so quick to believe that is truly a testament to the term. There's a term for mass hysteria and folks that show up to emergency rooms with
Munchausen syndrome?
No, Munchausen's is when you have a child that you pretend is ill in order to get attention from doctors.
Oh, okay.
It's a,
I think it's called, like, mass fucking hysteria.
Yeah, I think it's actually just called mass hysteria.
Yeah.
You're welcome.
Oh, thank you, Maddie.
Thank you.
It needs to also be added that Julie Johnson was diagnosed and hospitalized for acute paranormal schizophrenia, and in 1986, she was found dead in her home from complications of chronic alcoholism.
What we're not going to do, though, in this podcast, though, is shame people that suffer from mental illness.
No, I'm not shaming them for mental illness. I'm just saying that more investigation needs to be done for the fact that this person is suffering from paranoid schizophrenia and is alcoholic.
No, I think what he's saying is that this person was accused of being an alcoholic and was, by the media, assumed that she suffered from paranoid schizophrenia.
No, she was diagnosed. She by her doctor. She was diagnosed.
Either way, I just see a victim of respectability politics.
Yeah, I understand that. Yeah, I totally understand. I totally agree with you. I'm not making fun of anyone with that issue.
You're not making fun of anyone.
Well, saying that this person's wrong, but when you come up first, accusing someone of child abuse is a very major. I'm looking for the word. Major accusation, and we preface that my child is being abused by not only my ex-husband, but also by the teachers, and then you're saying to them that my child said that people are flying through the air. What I'm saying is, I'm not blaming her. I'm blaming the police. I'm clearly blaming the police. Clearly blaming the police
for everything.
By going, wait a minute, hold on, we need to investigate this a hell of a lot further instead of jumping to conclusions. Because not only that you have this person who's clearly mentally has mental issues, but also the fact that you have something like Pizzagate. This is one of the reasons why I chose this, is because it sounds so much like Pizzagate.
It does.
And had some crazy moron, racist moron walking up to a pizza joint where people are trying to work and trying to make a living with AK-47s, trying to blow up the place, saying that kids are being held under there by Hillary Clinton. It's ridiculous. And the fact that not only the police but the media just go along with both of these stories is absolutely ridiculous. Because I'm sitting there as a news director, I'm hearing this story like, oh, Hillary Clinton is helping part of this cabal where they're holding kids and abusing kids, sexually abusing kids in the basement of a pizza joint. Yeah, I'm going to investigate a little bit, but I'm also going to go, this is absolutely crazy. Especially it's crazy when someone who's actually abusing kids is sitting in the White House.
It's utterly beyond reason, frankly, to rationalize the fact that folks who are trafficking children, who are committing these horrific abuses against children, are getting away with it. And I say this as someone who both has a child and is a sex worker. So, cool. Come at me with your all sex workers are trafficked narrative, because I will debate it until I die. But what it boils down to is you have children who are being abused because it's quite easy to abuse children because they're unreliable witnesses. And everyone thinks that it's this easy thing to dismiss, and it's this easy thing to get rid of because it's just kids, and they've created this great fantasy in their heads about their teacher flying through the air or something else. But what it truly comes down to is children aren't necessarily as dismissible as we expect. But at the same time, in terms of the satanic panic, we have to look at what the media did, because the media took something that was a baseless accusation and made it into this entire grand narrative that completely had not actually taken place.
And yeah, especially with kids do tell the truth, even if they, like my lie efforts, they eventually end up telling the truth. Perfect case when I did the Kelly Hopkinsville incident, the Kelly Hopkinsville Goblins, and there was children that had witnessed that. The kids that are growing up that are still with us today still tell the same story, but that's on a different plane. But let's get on to what some of the accusations that the kids were made. When they started interviewing and examining children, it was done by the Children's Institute International, a Los Angeles-based abusive therapy clinic run by Key McFarland. The interviewing techniques used during the investigation of the accusations were highly suggestive and invited kids to pretend or speculate about supposed events. In the spring of 1984, it was claimed that 360 kids had been abused. Ingrid Hepstall-Holger performed medical examinations and took photos of what she believed to be minute scarring, which she stated was caused by anal penetration. Journalist John Earl believed her findings were based on unsubstantiated medical histories. Later research demonstrated that the methods of questioning used on the kids were highly suggestive, leading to false accusations. Also believed that the questioning itself may have led to false memory syndrome among the kids questioned. Only 41 of the original 360 kids ultimately testified in a grand jury in pretrial hearings, and fewer than a dozen testified in the actual trials. Michael P. Maloney, a clinical psychiatrist and professor of psychiatry, reviewed videotapes of the children's interviews. Mahoney testifying as an expert witness on interviewing children, was highly critical of the techniques used, referring to them as improper, coercive, directive, problematic, and adult-directed in a way that forced the children to follow a rigid script. She concluded that many of the kids' statements in the interviews were generated by the examiner. Transcripts and recordings of the interviews contains far more speech from the adults than the children demonstrated. Despite the highly corrosive interviewing techniques used, initially the children were resistant to the interview's attempts to elicit disclosures. The recordings of the interviews were instrumental in the jury's refusal to convict by demonstrating how children could be coerced into giving vivid and dramatic testimonies without having experienced actual abuse. Like, I see some of the tapes, and yeah, they're highly subjective. Especially the McMartin, who was doing some of the interviews, did not allow the kids to speak most of the time. She just kept speaking. It was like, "Oh, this happened to you. We know this happened to you," and it was like just totally corrosive. Like some of the accusations that the kids were making is that they alleged that they had been sexually abused. They saw witches fly, traveled in a hot air balloon, and were taken through tunnels. Which showed a series of photographs by Danny Davis, the McMartin's lawyer during the trials. One child identified Chuck Norris as one of his abusers. Walker, Texas Ranger, came down and touched these kids. Lone Wolf did it. I mean, this is you're seeing this as a prosecutor and a police, and you gotta go. You go into a lineup, and the kid picks out a picture of Chuck Norris. It says Chuck Norris was here. Or the kid's like, "Oh, we're taking our hot air balloons." Like, the hot air balloon part. Yeah, like, there's records of where hot air balloons are throughout your area that you're in. They usually keep records of who's there. You go look that up. I mean, what the hell? What? Come on. This is a clear cut. Like, yo, something's not right here. Something's rotten in the state of Denmark. And,
damn right.
Yeah, something's rotten. Like, here, some of the abuse was alleged that occurred in secret tunnels beneath the school. Several excavations turned up evidence of old buildings on the site and other debris from before the school was built, but no evidence of any secret chambers or tunnels were found. There were claims of orgies at car washes and airports, and with children being flushed down toilets to secret rooms where they would be abused and cleaned up and presented back to their parents. Some children interviewees talked of a game called Naked Movie Star and suggested they were forcibly photographed nude. During the trial testimony, some children stated that the Naked Movie Star game was actually a rhyming talk used to tease other children. The rhyme goes something like this: "What you say is what you are. You are a naked movie star." It had nothing to do with having naked children pictures taken. It gets worse. Judy Johnson, who made the initial accusations, made bizarre and impossible statements about Raymond Bucky, including that he could fly. Throughout, the prosecution asserted Johnson's mental illness was caused by the events of the trial. Johnson admitted to them that she was mentally ill beforehand. Evidence of Johnson's mental illness was withheld from the defense for 3 years, and when provided was in the form of sanitized reports that excluded Johnson's statements at the order of prosecution. One of the original prosecutors, Glenn Stevens, left the case in protest, stated the other prosecutors had withheld evidence from the defense, including information that Johnson's son was not actually able to identify Raymond Bucky in a series of photographs. Stephen also accused Robert Simon, the deputy district attorney on the case, of lying and withholding evidence from the court and defense lawyers in order to keep the Buckleys in jail and prevent access to exonerating evidence. These are major prosecutorial crimes that's going on here that Mr. Stevens is accusing the Los Angeles County prosecutors on during this case. This is charged for not only a mistrial, the evidence being thrown out, but also of these district attorneys being disbarred and prosecuted themselves, and yet this is able to go on. How do you not tell someone to tell the defense team that the main witness to this child abuse case had mental illness before this case started for 3 years? How does that not... When people say that the justice system is broken, they're literally telling the truth. They're telling you that there's an absolute bias against certain people in the United States courts of law. They're telling the fucking truth. This is plain evidence of this. And it shouldn't have to be plain evidence of this.